Welcome back to the final chapter of the Bangla mystery, guys. Let's see if Nancy Drew finds the money. Let's go straightly to the chapter. It's chapter 20, a surprise gift. I'm sure, said Nancy, that Mr. Dowd not only put the money and securities in one of the suitcases, but never removed them. Then where are they? Don asked. Nancy smiled. These bags may have false bottoms. Little Gil said, Why, of course, I should have thought of that. Kneeling down, he soon found that Nancy was right. The bottom of each bag opened up, disclosing packages of $1,000 bills and securities. Good thinking, Nancy, said Don admiringly. You are a whiz of a detective, all right. It took Mr. Drew and the officer several minutes to count the large sum of money and make a rough estimate of the value of the stocks and bonds. When they finished, the officer gave Carson Drew a receipt to turn over to the president of the Monroe National Bank. Meanwhile, he would take the stolen property to the police headquarters and send on a detailed report. A few minutes later, Nancy Group said goodbye to the officers and returned to Mr. Drew's car. When they reached the Bleach Cliff Hotel, Nancy and Mr. Drew got out. They thanked Don for all he had done. Don't mention it, the young man grinned. Turning to Nancy, he added, I kept my date with you yesterday after all. As he got into the driver's seat, Don said that when he returned the car to Mr. Drew's home, he would tell Hannah Green what had happened. It was now very light. Nancy and her father, exhausted, could hardly wait to get a few hours' sleep. They tumbled into their beds and slept until noon, then met in the hotel dining room for a hearty lunch. How's your head, Dad? Nancy asked. Sound as ever, Carson Drew said grinningly. I don't even have a bump. Then we have a date, Nancy told him, waving her note. This was at the desk. I picked it up. The clerk said Jim Donald left it a little while ago. The date's with him, Mr. Drew asked. No, Laura Pendleton. She says she and the Auburns are thrilled by the news while the police relayed and would like us to come to their house as soon as possible. What do you say, Dad? We'll go. As Nancy finished her pancakes and sausages, she remarked that she could hardly wait to start for the Auburns' home. I wonder if the Dowds have confessed everything and what Mr. Friendlich has to say. In my opinion, it's an open and shut case, the lawyer replied. While Mr. Drew paid the hotel bill, Nancy called a taxi and soon the Drews were heading for Eagle Rock Lane. Reaching it, they got out of the cab and the lawyer paid the driver. Nancy slid in behind the steering wheel of her convertible as Mr. Drew got in on the other side. The motor started at once. Good old Jim, Nancy said with a smile and drove up the lane to the Auburn home. As she parked, the front door was opened by a woman of about 45. Her pretty face showed humor, kindness and intelligence. After the Drew had introduced themselves, the women said that she was Marian Auburn and had reached home in a wee small horse because her plane was late. I've been more eager to meet you too, she added smilingly. How can I ever thank you for all you have done? As the callers went inside, Laura Pendleton hurried down from the second floor. After greeting Mr. Drew, she gave Nancy a kiss and exclaimed, Everything is so wonderful. You have captured the thieves and recovered all the money. I have the nicest guardians anyone could ever hope for. And Jacob and I have a daughter to love, said Marian Auburn, smiling fondly at Laura. Nancy asked how Mr. Auburn felt. His wife said, Come see for yourself, and led the way to a small study at the rear of the house. She knocked, then opened the door, and Nancy heard the steady drum of typewriter keys. Jacob Auburn was seated behind the machine. The erstwhile cellar prisoner already looked like a new man. His face was flooded with color and his eyes was alert and happy. Now he stood up, greeted the Drews and expressed his great appreciation for all they have done in recovering his and Laura's property. He grinned at Nancy. First time a girl ever risked her own life for me, he said. To show my appreciation, I'm writing my adventure. You know, writing is my business. If I sell this one to a magazine, I'm going to give the proceeds to Nancy's favorite charity, the River Heights Youth Center. Why, that's terrific, Nancy exclaimed. Mrs. Auburn face sobered. She said that she had not yet heard the entire story of what has happened. Before anyone had a chance to tell her, the doorbell rang. Lieutenant Guild walked in with Mr. Chief Mick Guinness of River Heights and another man. While Nancy greeted the officers, her father hurried to shake hands with the stranger. This is Mr. Seward, president of Monroe National Bank, he announced a moment later and introduced the dignified white-haired man. The president glanced included the policeman as he said, I want to thank all of you in person for the splendid job you did in capturing the Dowds and the 2 bank employees involved in the thefts. That is the 4th man, Nancy asked in amazement. Mr. Seward explained that Alam Dowd's brother Joe Jackson has been employed by the Monroe National Bank in their vault department for some time. He and Friendlich had cooked up the scheme of taking the securities. They had done this between audits of the bank's holdings. Friendlich, in his job as assistant custodian, has known exactly how to place his hands on the valuable stock and bonds. Friendlich overheard Mrs. Pendleton Pendleton discussion with me about Laura and the large estate she would inherit someday, Mr. Seward said, and all that Mr. Auburn would be her guardian. When Friendridge learned that Laura Pendleton has a valuable jewelry collection, he instantly thought of a swindle scheme. Friendridge had chanced to meet Mr. Auburn one time while vacationing at Molesworth. He had been amazed by the strong repellence between Auburn and Stumpy Todd, whom Alarm Brothers has introduced to Friendridge. He also showed to impersonate Mr. Auburn and to move up the date when Laura would come to the guardian's home. He even deposited some securities with the bank in Stumpy's name, and there would be no question of doubts having anything to do with the thefts. "Where is Joe Jackson now?" Nancy asked. Chief McInnes said that he would answer this question. "We caught him cruising by the Drews' home. When he stopped the car, he tried to escape. After the whole story broke, we got to a confession from him. He was going to burglarize your home, Nancy, to find the jewels." "That's one thing I don't understand," said Mrs. Auburn. "Why did the Dowds send the bungalow when they had helped themselves to this house?" Nancy grinned. "I'm sure I know this," she said. "Dowds was smart enough not to want either Friendridge or Jackson to stay here, just in case anyone from the bank traced the thefts to them before Dowd could make a getaway. So he had Alma Dowd rent the bungalow and convince Friendridge that it was a good hideout." After Mr. Auburn and Laura had signed statements for the police officers and Mr. Seward left, Nancy suddenly felt a sense of loneliness and realized it was because her work on the case was at the end. Would another mystery come her way to solve? She wondered, and it did. In less than a week, Nancy was pacing up to challenge the mystery of Lilac Inn. Nancy and her father now said goodbye to the family at Eagle Rock. As Nancy gave Laura a farewell hug, she asked, "When will you come to get your jewelry?" Laura consulted a guardian who said the next day would be convenient for them to drive to River Heights. "Will 3 o'clock be all right?" "Yes, indeed." The following afternoon, Laura Pendleton and the Auburns arrived promptly. After iced tea and some Hannah's delicious open-faced sandwiches, Laura whispered to Mr. Drew that she would love to get her jewels from the safe. Excusing himself, Nancy's father left the room and returned in a few minutes with the package while he handed to Laura. Nancy, meanwhile, was listening to Jacob Auburn's surprising news that he has finished his story and was sending it to a leading magazine. "Wonderful," Nancy said. As she said this, she looked up to see Laura standing before her. In the girl's hand was the beautiful aquamarine ring Nancy has admired earlier in the week. "I would like you to wear this," Laura said shyly, as a reminder that our friendship began on the water. Quickly, she slipped the ring on the third finger of Nancy's right hand. The pretty detective came an exclamation of delight and admired the gift for a long moment. Then she showed it to the others. At last, she turned to Laura and said with genuine sincerity, "The ring is priceless, and I'll always treasure it as a reminder of you, although no one can plan a value on a true friendship like ours." Seeing tears in Laura's eyes, Nancy added quickly with a grin, "Even if we had to shipwreck to get an introduction." Wow, what an ending, guys. Have a happy day.